So I had to go around the country and educate people about what immigrants do for this country, or the fact that we are a country of immigrants.
Right. I doubt it.
The fact is, ain't none of y'all trying to go and farm right now.
It's not against the law, ho. Fuck you.
Okay, so I'm lying. Raise your hands. You're not. We done picking cotton. We are. You can't pay us enough to find a plantation.
You serious?
You America-hating communist pig.
Bingo.
In this world, there's two kinds of people, my friend. Those with loaded guns and those who dig. Broadcasting from a Montana wilderness fortress at the headwaters of the Missouri, this is Matt Christiansen Live.
Hello and welcome to the show. This is Matt Christiansen Live for Wednesday, April 9th, 2025. Thank you for tuning in. Bear with the voice. I'm losing it a little bit, but hopefully it'll hang on. My friend Frank from Quite Frankly is back for his monthly appearance, 1 week delayed because last week was Frank's birthday. Happy birthday, Frank.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's good to be back.
Once again, a little bit of a late launch, but because we've had various comedic tech issues in some of your last minute entrances in prior iterations of this stream, I want to relieve Frank of any blame. That was on... I'll take the blame for that, even though once again I'm going to point the finger at Restream for some nonsense. But, late and gay, 1 minute late.
And I showed up at 8:58. Usually I show up, at least the last 4 months, I feel like I've shown up at 8:59 and 35 seconds.
So Frank was early tonight, and I just want that on the record so that there's no speculation swirling about why you had to wait an extra minute or two for the start of this much anticipated stream, of course. But we're going to talk the big breaking news within the last few hours. Trump has paused most of the tariffs for 90 days to negotiate with all of these countries. That sent the stock market launching back up, except for China. China still gets the finger. China apparently still wants the fight. So we'll see where that goes. Plus, as soon as I saw this story breaking earlier this week, I mark it down. That's a Frank topic. I got to talk about that one with Frank. Not just because it's something I think would spark his interest, but because I personally love Jurassic Park so much too. We have to talk about the Direwolf resurrection. And I love somehow it's one of those stories where I hate everybody. I hate the people trying to play God, but I also hate the scientists saying, well, actually, that's not a real direwolf. That doesn't count because it's not the exact genetic. Dude, they're taking old DNA and splicing it into current era wolves. I don't care what technically counts or not. I care that they're doing the Jurassic Park thing.
They're doing the meme.
Yeah.
We just don't have an Ian. There's no Ian Malcolm out there saying just because you can do something doesn't mean that you should.
I couldn't believe it. We'll get into the news story I saw because I want you to see it's the scientists doing this saying, oh no, it's way different than Jurassic Park. We're trying to help the animals. Right. That's not what they were doing at Jurassic Park. They were creating T-Rexes to abuse them or something like that.
For stop trying to help me once I'm dead. We're trying to help the direwolf. Oh, apparently they've been gone for 10,000 years. Yeah. Leave them alone now.
They had a good run. Later, our friend Del the Redneck will join for a few topics. We'll take calls and emails to close the show as well. And as a reminder, if you'd like to call the show, you can do that through the Discord server. That's linked in the description. There are instructions and help available for you on the server. Plus, we'll catch up with your super chats as well. But let's get right into it, Frank. By the way, before I do, though, quite frankly, .tv for all things Frank. The show is live weeknights at 7 Eastern. Quite frankly, .tv is where you find it. But let me give you the quick facts, and then, of course, I want to hear your analysis of it. But this afternoon, Trump announced in a Truth Social post that he is pausing tariffs for 90 days on more than 75 countries who did not retaliate after he announced his tariffs. And then, of course, when they went into effect, was that this morning, yesterday morning? I forget. But they just recently went into effect. Now, it's not totally over for these countries. They're still going to have a 10% tariff while these negotiations develop. But it sounds like this was kind of a big shit test. Like, I'm going to throw something at you and see how you react. And the people who reacted the way that I like are going to be rewarded. And the people who retaliated against me are going to be punished. And that's why China is still punished. China is still tariffed aggressively, not just aggressively, but increasingly so. Trump bumped tariffs on China up to 104% within the last couple of days, and now it's 125%, I guess. And then we still have the existing tariffs on cars, steel, and aluminum across all countries that still remain. And then we had the corresponding market surge. Now, as sharply as markets went down the last few days, end of last week and then early in this week, they're now on a steep rebound. Today's Dow Jones close was up almost 8% from yesterday's close. That recovers almost all of the week's losses. The Dow is still down about 10% from its December all-time high, but we could be back on an upswing here. So the biggest drop in the market since COVID is now followed up by the biggest surge in the market since COVID. In fact, I saw the biggest surge today since 2008. So, and Trump was out there saying, great time to buy the dip. I unfortunately did not buy the dip. I have other financial obligations, but
it's almost as if this was part of a plan and not randomly shooting into the night as they said that he was doing.
Yeah.
So it's almost as if he knew that this was probably going to go this way, especially with the 75. Like, what were you going to do? I wish we can get a concise list of the 75 nations that are like, hey, okay, let's talk. I'm sending some diplomats over right now, and let's get this whole thing worked out. And as I said before, just a few minutes ago, you're talking about nations that are largely meekly accepting what had been given to them by American so-called leaders of the past, who are committed to one thing and one thing only, and that is the dissolution of the American Union from a cultural and from an economic standpoint, all any way that a nation could be, I don't know, have some self-confidence and self-respecting and forward-looking. They undercut that for many, many years in the way that they manage foreign policy and also domestic policy. We can talk about the domestic in just a little bit, because that's the next thing that can really screw everybody. Yeah, sure, level out the playing field with what's going on with the tariffs and make sure that there's no predatory action out there. We're not getting, shafted here. But it's so crazy to see that those 75 countries right there, at any time, they could have been called upon to say, I think that there's a better deal that we can make. I think that you're taking advantage of us a little bit more. No, these 75 countries were just very meekly accepting what American leaders of the past were giving, because their number one goal was to divest America from itself. I mean, because there's no fight. I mean, China is a completely different story, and I think it's really incredible how they have now been absolutely isolated, and they don't even have Russia to lean on, because there's no tariffs being put on.
Well, that was the fear, and I say this as someone who's been somewhat critical of this in the weeks prior here. There have been moments where I've not trusted the plan, Frank. I will confess, But yeah, the fear was like, okay, you isolate these countries, they're going to leave the United States and go into China's arms. We're watching the opposite, at least in this moment right now. China is becoming isolated. And I'll take your point on that. And I love that point that you made too. There's what sort of strong leadership did this actually take? I'm not taking away from Trump in the progress he's making here potentially, but it took a polite ask of, hey, could you not? Could you please stop? That's annoying. Don't do that to us anymore. I think that's a great point that you make, that it just took someone stepping up in the slightest bit, because America still is a powerful country that people want to do business with. It's the market in the world that you want to be a part of. And a gentle reminder to other countries appears to have the motivating factor that we'd expect, I suppose.
Nearly 100 countries. 100 different separate governments that were immediately like, well, we don't want to play this game. They were probably just like, hey, listen, we were only tariffing you so high because we were told that we can get away with it.
Yeah.
America was essentially upended, and we were grabbed by our ankles, and all the change in our pockets were just being sprinkled around the world. And this is obviously a part of a plan, because like I said in my show tonight, the main goal here is no doubt to just melt us into this one world super state sludge that is cultureless and has, entangling alliances all over the place and constantly. I mean, it just sucks. it sucks where we were, and this is definitely a necessity. This is something that needed to be addressed if there's going to be any kind of correction here.
Let me devil's advocate a little bit, though, and see how you'd respond. So these 75 countries, as far as I've seen, remain unnamed, right? We don't necessarily, we've seen a few names here and there, like Vietnam wants to negotiate, and Indonesia and these countries. So we don't necessarily know who, and we don't know the terms. And if I wanted to say that this is something other than what it appears to be, that is to say other countries doing what you're describing and saying, hold on, we don't, let's talk here, let's get this figured out. Could it be that the 75 countries is not entirely true or exaggerated, and this is actually just reaction to the negative market performance in the last week or so, or really over the last month, and they're saying, well, we're going to give a pause to it because everybody wants to talk to us, when in reality, they're looking at the negative market reaction and finding an off-ramp to get away from that?
I don't, no. If you wanted to say that there is a chance that 75 is really 43 or something like, I don't know, perhaps, but you got to understand that there is only one motivator for the people in the bureaucracy and in the media to actually do work, and that is Trump said it. So I would, if he's lying about how many countries have come to the negotiating table and said, we're dispatching somebody to start dealing with you guys, and we want to start working all this out, that's on him. For sure. One way or another, this shows that the main target in all of this, the biggest offender in all of this, was China, and they were the main target. Because I'm pretty sure that the Trump administration knew that these smaller benefactor nations that are now coming and saying, let's not go to the poorhouse with this. Let's just, make sure everything is good for all parties and whatever. I'm pretty sure he knew that they would be pushovers because they don't have any leverage, and they're going to take a deal, and that's just what it is. We have all the cards. China, on the other hand, I think we watched the clip of Kevin O'Leary the other night. We just watched that tonight too, that 2-minute clip. I thought that was very well said there too about what China represents as far as intellectual property theft over the years compared to anywhere else. So we'll see if there is a list and it doesn't turn out to be 75 and it's more like 43 or 23 or whatever. Well, that's on them for exaggerating. But I think that I think the strategy really is isolating China. They're definitely the main target here.
Yeah, I think the other qualifier too would be, it's not just the number, it's what kind of country is on that list. Obviously, right. We know that conflict still remains with our major trading partners, Mexico, Canada, and China, as you've been discussing. And so, yes, it's good to get a great deal with, say, Vietnam or Ethiopia or whatever. I'm not dismissing that. However, you need to get the best deals from the biggest players, and it's not that could still be to come. It's just we don't know for sure that that's what's happening yet.
Yeah. Listen, this is a very easy, when you talk about war and mutually assured destruction, I really do believe that this is not mutually assured destruction. When you have China and America, the United States, going head to head in this kind of a standoff, well, we're not talking about hypersonic missiles. We're not talking about naval bombardments or anything else like that. We're talking about tariffs, and we're talking about, how dependent, who is on the other, who's more dependent on the other, and who is more over leveraged. We have a lot of problems right now that you can't just flip a switch and correct them. We can't flip a switch and tomorrow be manufacturing all the pharmaceuticals that we buy from China here. That same thing goes for any kind of, computer products, circuit boards, microchips, anything like that. There's a lot of things that need to start gravitating back home. So, but other than that, you have to ask yourself who's more indebted to who, and who can survive being on the lam more. And I think that we have the upper hand on that still with China. I think everything that we get from them is half truth or an outright lie. I think there's a lot of Potemkin villages out there, and I don't know. You can't try. I don't trust the American government either, but I trust the Chinese government a little bit less, to be honest. And even though they're in bed with each other on a lot of very important things. And like I said before, the way that the world is working right now, the way that the trade imbalances were in place for a long time, the way that we have been allowing and pushing American ingenuity and entrepreneurs into the arms of the Chinese we're talking about tariffs right now in regulating international trade. But another real way that you can absolutely decimate anybody who has been leeching off of American ingenuity, destroy the corporate tax rate here at home, continue to deregulate here at home, get rid of the income tax here at home. You want to see people flocking to do business in the United States, make us free again. It's cool to have these trade imbalances dealt with and make sure that everybody's, you're not getting tariffed 75% by somebody and you're coming in with 2.5% against them. That's ridiculous. That's not self-respecting at all. But there's so much we can do domestically that it's really going to put the rocket fuel in the tank. And that's what I'm looking forward to. Yeah.
Whatever's going on, it's hard to argue that this is some kind of bad direction relative to the status quo. So I think it's degrees of improvement, and it's welcome news, man. I was nervous there for a little while, but things are looking up, and that's great. Really, I'm just trying to find an off-ramp to talk direwolves now because I want to leave plenty of time for that. All right. Yeah. So by now, you've surely seen the news. Just like Dr. Ian Malcolm said, they did it. Those crazy sons of bitches actually did it.
You did it. You crazy son of a bitch, you did.
Except this time is way different from Jurassic Park because reasons, which we'll hear about in a moment. But on Monday, a Texas biotech company called Colossal Biosciences announced they have accomplished what they're calling the world's first animal de-extinction. And they brought back the direwolf, which is the animal made famous by the Game of Thrones TV series. Now, I just assumed direwolves were fictional. I've seen all of Game of Thrones. I didn't realize they were a real animal. But they're basically just big wolves. And they went extinct 10,000, 12,000 years ago. I don't know. They apparently share something like 99+% of their DNA with the gray wolf that we all know today. But how did they do it? Well, they took a 13,000-year-old tooth and they got DNA from that. And they took a 72,000-year-old skull and they got DNA from that. And they spliced it into existing wolf DNA and they made 3 puppies that were born in October, and all 3 of them are alive and still in captivity today. And as far as I understand, that's pretty much the same method that existed in the fictional depiction in Jurassic Park. Remember, they pulled the DNA from the mosquitoes and the amber and they put it together with frog DNA or whatever they did.
From your blood.
Exactly. So it's basically the same thing. I mean, in general theme at least. But here's a news report I saw the other morning on it.
A Dallas-based biotech company saying they've resurrected the giant Ice Age wolf, essentially bringing it back to life through a process called de-extinction.
Colossal is the world's first de-extinction company, and our goal is to make extinction a thing of the past.
Colossal says they've genetically engineered 3 wolves that they say resemble the dire wolves. The company sharing these videos showing the animals howling as cubs, and here sleeping and running in their habitat at an undisclosed secure location in the U.S.
People think it's a scary word, de-extinction. They immediately put us with Jurassic Park, and it's not. We're trying to develop these new techniques in order to save animals.
One at a time, we take our gene editing tools and we go into that cell and we cut out the bit of DNA that looks like a gray wolf and paste in its place the DNA that looks like a dire wolf.
Once a new genome was created, domestic dogs were used as surrogates, miraculously giving birth to Romulus, Remus, and their sister Khaleesi. Yes, named after Game of Thrones.
They are also working on other animals, including the woolly mammoth and the dodo, guys.
They're working on the woolly mammoth. Okay.
Save the mammoth.
They've been working on the mammoth since 1991.
Oh, this is okay. So this is like a pre-Jurassic Park thing even. I didn't know people were actually doing this.
Oh man, there's been talking about woolly mammoth resurrection forever, and the dodo bird. I threw that out there jokingly. I don't know when the hell it was. It was a few, maybe about a month or 2 ago. We did a whole thing on the dodo bird, and because that's when I found out that all the dodo bird exhibits that I saw in like the American Museum of Natural History and in the city and stuff, that they weren't real. They weren't like, I thought that they were taxidermied birds. They were just recreations. There's no actual carcasses left of the dodo bird.
When did it go extinct?
In I think the 1600s.
Oh, okay. So that's earlier than I thought. I thought it was later than that. Okay.
No, it was the 1600s, and I thought it was later too. Yeah, but it's not. Here's the thing about the dire wolves. If these things don't turn out to be giant fucking wolves, then I don't believe that they found a 10,000-year-old tooth and a 27,000-year-old skull, and they did this thing. They look like right now. They look like regular wolves to me.
Like so a more white coat than usual, but yeah, that's.
I mean, I don't know. Well, what do we wait for? A year? Are they going to be full size in a year? They're going to be, if they're the size of a damn rhinoceros in a year, like they are in Game of Thrones, I'll be all right. But that's the other thing there too. Why the hell do we need to have these things back? And if they were 10,000 years ago, what was the cause of their extinction? Was it deindustrialization or over-industrialization, deforestation, something like that? You're talking about so many years ago at this point. And as I was saying to you a little bit before, there is there's always this balancing. You live near Yellowstone Park. There's always this balancing of ecosystems, whether or not you're going to add apex predators, cull their population. If you overcull their population and they're without apex predators, what happens to the entire geographic location that you're in? If deer and everything are able to just graze until kingdom come without somebody threatening them, like there's a lot that goes on here, and we already have those wolves all over the place. Why the hell do we need Jurassic Park style wolves?
Well, that was one thing that was mentioned, and of course the reintroduction of wolves into Yellowstone has had ecological impacts in the way you describe. It's actually changed the flow of water because it impacts the elk herds and the beavers, and those animals will influence the way the water actually travels with their behavior. So the ecological impact in Yellowstone has been really interesting to see. But on the other side of it too, wolves have been a massive problem for ranchers in this area. And that has to be managed as well. Like, we're trying to maintain a natural ecology while also respecting people's property and livelihoods. And I'll take your point that even though I think wolves are cool and I've enjoyed seeing their recovery in this ecosystem around here, I don't feel like we need 10,000-year-old giant wolves to to address the preservation of the ecosystem around here. And this is why I get a kick out of there's so many ethics to question here. I get a kick out of this paper in New Scientist. No, the dire wolf wasn't brought back from extinction. No. All they did, there's like a million bajillion sequences in their DNA, and all they did was insert 20 that they got from dire wolves. And so these are just gray wolves with a few different, mutations. Right. I mean, I get it that like they've created something they believe to be a dire wolf, but it probably is something slightly distinct from the ones that existed years and years ago. The point is, why are we creating creatures in this way? Why are we playing God in this way? Even if the creatures we're creating are 99.9% wolves that exist today. But let's say they keep doing this. Let's say okay, we edited X genes in the dire wolf this time. Let's see what else we can plug in there. Let's see what else works. Let's tinker a little more. And how long until you're making freak show weird animals? And what do you do with these dire wolves? I mean, they live in a zoo right now. Like, are we saving the animals? Are we helping the animals by recreating them from scratch and keeping them in a cage their entire lives because they have no role in the natural ecosystem?
Yeah, I know. And here's where I naturally go with these things. Every time that they show us something that makes no sense, well, okay, why are you doing this? Why do we need a woolly mammoth back? Why do we need to resurrect these things? If you're looking to find new ways to breed, animals that are around right now that are on the verge of extinction that you'd like to be able to create a new generation and pull it back from the brink, if you wanted to play God even to that level, at least you can say, hey, well, the California condor that was actually an example in Jurassic Park.
Dude, I have it. Can I play the clip? Because you're right on the point. Here it is.
Go ahead.
Yeah, but your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they didn't stop to think if they should.
Condors. Condors are on the verge of extinction. If I was to create a flock of condors on this island, you wouldn't have anything to say.
No, hold on. This is some species that was obliterated by deforestation or the building of a dam. Dinosaurs had their shot, and nature selected them for extinction.
Same with direwolves. They had their chance.
Yeah. So when I look at this, I'm thinking about, okay, well, regardless of how legitimate the science is, and if they are actually doing these things, if this was actually sourced from real direwolf DNA or dodo DNA or a woolly mammoth, whatever the hell it is, this is the circus sideshow portion for the public. We're looking at wolves that existed 10,000 years ago, a hairy elephant that existed 27,000 years ago, and a bird that everybody used to kick around and abuse, and it's all whatever. That, I feel like it's just one of those circus sideshow moments where some science is being done, and they're getting answers that can be applied for a bigger project that nobody knows about. I feel like these are always just these are very public ways of showing that money is being spent to achieve some sort of an interesting end, whether it be, and on the surface level, it'll be labeled as conservationist or something like that. But, for example, other news that was made in the last week is the first child born in the UK, I think under NHS, what do they have? NIH out there?
NHS. NIH is Fauci, but, just as evil.
NHS is UK, right?
Yeah.
First child born via womb transplanted womb. Okay?
In another, I have to ask because of modern times, in another woman or in a man?
Oh, no. It's woman for now.
Right.
That's the whole point. For now, this woman received a womb transplant from her sister. She's like one of those, some women, it's very, very rare, but some women are born without wombs.
And her sister used it already or didn't want it? Why did she give up her womb?
I don't know, but for one reason or another, she felt like her sister needed it and she wanted to give it to her. And through that procedure, she was able to deliver. Well, I don't know if she was able to deliver, or I think it was cesarean, actually, which is what it's going to be for everything. We're talking about the industrialization of reproduction, and everything that we read in Brave New World about how societies would be managed scientifically to keep them not only sustainable population-wise, but to make sure that everybody is actually genetically predisposed to doing a certain thing, and also getting into this crazy dystopian way of pulling people away from any kind of natural rhythm that we have over here as human beings, and to say that anybody can give birth now. And this was always the way it was meant to be, that heterosexual couples creating a child was just something that we had to do until we had the science to make sure that everybody can do whatever the hell they wanted to. I'm telling you, that's what this is all about. Not only that, a couple of weeks ago, there was this other thing here. They're called bodyoids. Did you hear about the bodyoids?
No. See, this is why I turn to you. You educate me about these things that I have. You're levels ahead of me on this stuff.
Research the bodyoids. Here's a headline for you. I just went to go grab any headline concerning it because it came out in March. I saw it. Over my dead body, spare human bodies grown in artificial wombs in a lab, as scientists insist that bodyoids feel no pain and can even serve as meat, as well as a way to grow organs. Like brainless bodies that can grow organs for the purposes of transplants and everything else. Of course, I'm thinking about what demon is going to put. Look, that's MIT. This is not.
Yeah, this is not some tinfoil crackpot website or something like that.
I'm telling you, dude.
Ethically sourced. What does that even? Where did you ethically source a human body?
There's no ethic. No ethical sourcing.
So you see the mob with a trunk. Don't worry, bro. It's ethically sourced. That's what we just drop it off at the lab when we're done.
I'm telling you, bro. It's so I'm saying all this stuff. Sometimes I don't know how it connects, but there's a reason why we're getting clusters of these articles all together, and it all has to do with one form of reproduction or another, and it's not natural. And man,
Well, that makes sense because, like, okay, wolves are cool. I liked them when I was young. I think they're cool now. Woolly mammoths, never seen one. Probably would be cool to see one if I had the chance, I guess, even though I'm not on board with, what's necessary to achieve that. But to your point, does anybody really think they're that cool that they'd put up all this effort and put all this money into it just to say, see a woolly mammoth? It's got to have... The direwolves are lab mice in this context. They're testing a particular method or a particular approach to achieve something else later. I think you're probably right about that. Direwolves are not the end. They're the means.
What was the most useful out of all of these declared experiments or achieved experiments? Now they say that they've achieved the direwolf. What do we need more? Did we need a hairy fucking elephant? Need a hairy elephant? Do we need a dodo bird that had no purpose back then? They were just poached. They had no self-defense instincts, nothing. They've gone. And then we have an oversized wolf or Dolly the sheep. Dolly
That's right.
Think about Dolly in like 1996, 1997. We were just in middle school, you and I.
Yeah.
Dolly was created. I forget how the hell it happened. I think that we can do with a lot more sheep than dire wolves or woolly mammoths. And what happened to Dolly led a very short, painful, arthritis and cancer-driven life, and it was horrible. What happened?
I didn't even know that. I didn't follow up on poor Dolly.
Oh, Dolly had a horrible life. Yeah, all types of physical problems, and we need sheep far more than we need dire wolves. And the one sheep that we had,
didn't go well.
They didn't go well.
Dolly was like the moon landing. We never tried it again. It sounds like that. All right, we did it, and
Dolly was a clone. Eric in the chat room says the same thing.
Yeah,
essentially, that's what we're doing. We're cloning these things. We're just cloning something that's been gone for a while, so we call it a resurrection.
Well, you can always make a half hour disappear quickly with our friend Frank, and I suppose I'll let you go there, man, because I don't know. We'll end up in another 20-minute conversation if I go any further. But anything else you want to add before you're out of here?
I'm just glad that we were able to do this the week after, and that we didn't lose the whole month of April, because I like chilling with you, and you've got a great audience, and yeah, all the best.
Quite Frankly .tv is where you find everything Quite Frankly live weeknights 7 Eastern. Quite Frankly .tv. All right, thank you, man. Appreciate it as always. And I guess I'll plan on seeing you first week of May, but we'll chat before then.
Until May, my friend. Have a good one. Good night, everybody.
All right, there he goes. Quite Frankly .tv for all things Quite Frankly. I'm going to go get our friend Del the Redneck. Let's see if he's here. And I got a few more news items before we hop into calls. But stand by. I'll be right back.
Stand back and stand by.
Welcome back, sir. How are you?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
I'm all right. You seen any dire wolves down at the Double Wide?
No, they'd be. I'd probably have to get my shotgun out and kill them and eat them, but no, not really. No.
You think you stand a chance?
We're counting on it. We're getting ready. We're getting ready.
All right.
Getting a few more rifles. Zeke's excited. It's going to be good.
That's good. All right. Well, I got a few more news items before we hop into some calls, and I want to talk a little bit about what's happened at the Supreme Court early this week, because you're seeing a lot of these lower court, some might say examples of overstepping. Or actions that these district courts have taken, these district court judges against Trump, getting undone by the Supreme Court. And of course, a lot of people had predicted this because a lot of these orders were just ridiculous in their sweeping scope or their power grabs or otherwise. Now, it doesn't mean any of the law is settled on any of this stuff. This immigration fight stuff's going to continue. The firing of federal workers is going to continue. But for now, Trump does have less obstructions in his way from activists and activist judges. So recall the ongoing battle with federal district court judge James Boasberg in D.C. This is a guy who ordered the planes to turn around, the planes that were going to El Salvador with the Tren de Aragua guys. And he said, bring them back. And I guess they didn't bring them back. They're all still in El Salvador. And one of them in particular is fighting his presence in El Salvador. We'll get to that in a moment. But Trump appealed that order from Boasberg.
Yeah, he's an anti-Trump. He's an anti-Trump judge. He's a bad judge. We don't like him.
Regardless of his perspective, it's just like the I didn't know judges had jurisdiction over like international air travel. Now they're global air traffic controllers. These district court judges.
Apparently, they have justice or just jurisdiction over just about everything that they want to.
Yeah,
which they just let it be challenged. Let me say this, and they're going to let it be challenged.
Yeah, which it's become its own problem. But anyway, these deportations can continue now under the Alien Enemies Act, at least for the time being, with a little bit of a qualifier. And this decision doesn't mean that the Supreme Court agrees that Trump is properly applying that law. That will be adjudicated still, the Alien Enemies Act. And remember, the Alien Enemies Act allows for immediate deportation without a hearing for enemies of the United States during wartime or another invasion. That's the legal theory here. And the question is Trump using that properly or not? But this decision does mean that Trump can continue deporting while the challenge plays out and maybe gets back to the Supreme Court, probably will eventually, to evaluate on the merits. But it was a 5-4 decision. And Amy Coney Barrett joined the liberals, and she's, I know that, well, if you want to steelman her position, she's a non-ideological judge. She's a rules-based originalist or textualist. And so sometimes she's going to decide cases in ways you wouldn't expect. But in this case, we didn't get commentary from Amy Coney Barrett. She just signed on uncritically to a Sonia Sotomayor opinion, if I understand correctly. So hey, man, I understand that if you are a good judge, you don't play political favorites, but anybody who has just signed their name to a Sonia Sotomayor opinion in full, I have to question a little bit.
I've seen people commenting on that too, when questioning her that this may just be the beginning.
Yeah,
she has voted a lot more in favor though of conservative cases.
I'm trying to be patient with old Amy Coney Barrett, but I see the warning signs, and I think they are worth mentioning. But this was a decision that was actually just based on venue, so this is really technicality, procedure stuff, and the justices in the 5-4 decision are saying that these deportations, this deportation challenge was brought in D.C. That's an inappropriate venue. It's a liberal favored venue. That's why. Well, of course, yeah, and that's what's interesting about this decision is what it means for the judge shopping. But what the Supreme Court is saying is, hey, these guys are they were in custody in Texas. You got to go file your appeal or get your hearing in Texas. You can't just go to D.C. You got to go to the appropriate venue, the appropriate jurisdiction. And so even though this is kind of a technical decision that doesn't have a ton of immediate impact and could easily get changed in the short term, what it means for that, what you're talking about, like venue matters. That seems like a technicality, but venue matters when the Supreme Court is telling these activists, you have to go to the proper venue and you get whatever judge you get. You can't just go shopping in DC because DC made no sense and was inappropriate in this particular case.
Well, we're a collection of states. I mean, you don't sit there and say, well, we're going to control all states from this one. No, you got to go to the state where it's happening to bring your case. You can't just do it from wherever. We're not one splop conglomerate country. We're a collection of states. We're a union. So yeah, that makes perfect sense to me. Also, I was surprised. Well, I wasn't surprised really that as always they decided to make their ruling as narrow as possible.
Well, it's kind of just a temporary procedural thing in their defense. If it was the classic John Roberts, really, and Kennedy was kind of famous for that too. Of course, not on the court anymore. But yeah, we have yet to get the John Roberts final decision that is totally emotional, makes no sense, really serves to preserve so-called Supreme Court integrity, institutional integrity, but is wildly illogical. That's probably coming, and also has no implications for anything else besides this particular case or set of facts. That's the John Roberts trademark.
Another excuse not to resolve constitutional questions. Is all it's going to be.
So
also, there was a judge apparently in Texas that issued a restraining order on the deportations already. So
I didn't hear that. As in post this Monday ruling.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's news to me. I didn't see that. So we got another one trying to intervene. You're saying they went to the right venue and the judge still intervened.
This guy was in Texas.
Okay.
Yeah, this guy in Texas. He's a Trump appointee too, and he issued a restraining order because apparently.
He already did. Did that break today, or when did that come out? Thank you for being my newsman.
Might have come out today. I'm not sure.
Well, even if that's the case,
I got to research them.
Even if we return, I guess I didn't do my job here. That's all right. I was looking at Direwolves today, so that's my excuse.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
But even if that's the case, even if you go to Texas, you get a different judge puts the same order on this. All right. I would still have questions about the scope of that judge's authority. However, at least we're getting the limitation on jurisdiction. And when these activists are limited in shopping for friendly venues, friendly jurisdiction, that's still, a win. That's still net plus.
Oh yeah.
So you like to see that. But there was also the undoing of this order that this guy who got deported to El Salvador has to come back. And at least temporarily, the Supreme Court is saying, well, we're gonna pause this. We're gonna evaluate. We don't have to try to force the Trump administration to bring him back immediately. But this guy, his name is what's the dude's name? Kilmar Armando Abrega Garcia. All right. So this guy was deported to El Salvador on March 15th, and it was apparently a mistaken deportation. As in, he was supposedly some kind of gang member. It's now been determined that he's not. And so there's not really a dispute from the Trump administration that it was a wrongful deportation. They're saying for the lower court, the district court, to tell the Trump administration, you have to bring that guy back right now. Well, they're saying, well, he's in El Salvador now, and that's kind of a diplomatic thing. And we will resolve that with the government of El Salvador, but we have to allow our State Department, our executive branch to do that. District court judges can't become diplomats and try to force us to manage the travel of people between countries. We have to do that on our own. And what's interesting about his case, so he was deported, again, alleged gang ties that appear to be mistaken or false, but it's not. When I first heard this story, it was like, oh, it's just like a dad who got deported. He probably is a dad, all right, I guess, but he was also an illegal immigrant. He was in this country illegally. His case is kind of complicated. And that was the other part of the prior Supreme Court case that I should have mentioned. In these Alien Enemies Act deportations, of which this guy is one, the Supreme Court is saying they are entitled to a hearing to challenge those deportations. So that is going to be a limitation on Trump too. And in this case, this guy under that understanding is going to be entitled to a hearing as well. But when we treat this as a mistake, and again, I'm taking them at their word that at least his gang membership appears to have been mistaken. It's not a mistake that he was in this country illegally and has been sent back to where he's from, which is El Salvador. So as far as mistakes go, yeah, I mean,
it's a good mistake.
Whether he belongs in prison in El Salvador, I guess we could allow El Salvador to evaluate if they want to do that. But yeah, he is an El Salvadorian national, and he was sent back there. So if it was a mistake, it was a pretty close mistake. We'll call it a foul ball. How about that? Not a home run, but a foul ball. And then there was a decision on, or a ruling rather, on the firing of federal workers. So the Supreme Court yesterday blocked a ruling from a federal district court judge in California that had ordered the Trump administration to rehire thousands of fired federal workers who were on probationary status. Those are workers at the Pentagon, the Treasury, and the Departments of Agriculture, Energy, Veterans Affairs, and the Interior. And this one likewise is a process issue. It's standing in this case, as in to bring a suit, to bring a challenge, you have to be sufficiently injured, sufficiently damaged by the policy, by the action. Otherwise, you're just a guy who's complaining. And the Supreme Court is saying these activist groups are just guys who are complaining. So you don't have standing. the White House will not be forced to rehire the workers while this case proceeds. But that's the technical thing here. They're not just dismissing it on standing. This was challenged in 2 separate trial courts, I believe. So that's the other thing is that speaking of jurisdiction shopping, it's like they're doing shotgun lawsuits where they basically bring the same lawsuit to different jurisdictions and see which one works.
That's exactly what they're doing. They're throwing everything they can to stop Trump. They're doing everything they can. Every kind of lawsuit they could think of, whether this is illegal, we shouldn't do this. Now, who cares? Let's just do it. Gum up the courts. Yeah, that'd be great.
And so the question remains, now that you have these lower court judges being formally overturned, at least in their orders, the merits of the case have yet to be decided, but they're taking these massive steps to try to craft policy themselves, like turn that Tren de Aragua plane around, even though it's over the Caribbean right now or something like that. What do you do with judges who are basically making up their own powers as they go? Well, the constitutional answer, of course, is impeachment. The practical reality is that's not going to happen because party loyalty exceeds institutional loyalty, as in Congress cares more about serving, say, Democrat interests than they do about preserving congressional power constitutionally. And so if judges overstep, they don't care. Yeah, that's fine. As long as it serves their party's interest.
Yeah, as long as it's on the left.
How about the solution of just give the judge the same treatment?
You suck. I hope Trump deports you.
Just put Judge Boasberg on the plane with the Tren de Aragua guys.
Put him in that, yeah. He's an alien enemy. He's alien enemy as far as I'm concerned. He can get out of here.
And I know that that would have constitutional questions itself, but my point is, while judges are inventing powers beyond their constitutional job description, why doesn't the executive branch just take a few liberties themselves? Now, of course, in principle, I want none of this. Okay, I want an appropriately restrained executive. I want an appropriately restrained judiciary. I see a problem here where you have a judiciary that is in many cases inventing its own powers, and the executive does that too. It's just one of these has to win, and the judiciary is saying it's us. But there's not really a constitutional reason why they have to. Remember, the Supreme Court just declared itself the arbiter of these things in Madison versus Marbury, but it's not constitutionally clear that the Supreme Court actually has final word on all things constitution that are constitutionally correct or not. Yeah. So I'm just like, while we're doing this, just play the game a little bit. Just put Judge Boasberg on the plane.
Let's do it. I said, may as well. Let someone sue to get him back. That's what they seem to like doing. So give him it's a win-win, basically, as far as I'm concerned.
And it's not even that big of a deal. When he's on the plane, he can just order it turned around, and they have to do it. So that's right. He can fly it at any time.
I'm a judge. Turn this around.
It's like, is there a doctor on the plane? No, but I am a judge. I'll fix your heart attack. I can do that too. All right. I also want to talk a little bit about this because big piece of news related to government abuses. Elon Musk and DOGE and the DOGE team, they're claiming they've uncovered millions of social security numbers given to illegal immigrants in recent years. The claim is 2.1 million of these illegal immigrants, non-citizens, have been given social security numbers just last year. And that's a big increase from 600,000 in 2022 and just under a million in 2023. Now, this is a system whereby apparently asylum seekers under Biden, they come here, they make an asylum claim. There's a backlog of asylum claims that's 1 million cases long. And so while they wait for their asylum case to be processed and adjudicated, they get work permits. And as a part of getting these work permits, you can work in this country until we decide if you're even here legally or not, whatever sense that makes. As a part of these work permits, they were given social security numbers. And I'm a little bit skeptical of this. When I saw this, I was a little bit skeptical of this claim because we saw something similar from the DOGE team, that there were all these people who are 150 years old on Social Security, which is true insofar as those records exist, but there wasn't evidence that those people were collecting Social Security benefits. And so anytime I see these claims, really that was like a bad government record keeping issue. And of course, anytime there's bad government record keeping, there's opportunity for abuse. But that story, I think, was a little mischaracterized. And so when I see this one, I think like, well, is that actually correct? And no, this does actually sound like it's legitimate. These are people who were not citizens or not people. It might be inaccurate to say they were illegal immigrants insofar as they had pending asylum claims. So like, I guess they were attempting a legal process. But the point is
That's
that
what I
legal
read.
process had yet to be decided, had yet to be adjudicated, and they were given work permits in the meantime. And someone needs to hit the delete key on that. I know you work with computers, right? Is there a way you think you can hit one delete key to delete all those social security numbers? You set
Depends
that
on where they're backed up to. It depends on how many places they've got them. But no, I can't do that. I can't. I've tried. Trust me.
Oh.
I've tried to delete lots and lots of Mod records, and please still find them.
Well, this was your opportunity to apply for DOGE work, and I guess you're not going to
Yeah,
get
them
it.
Doge bags, man.
Anyway, okay, I got a couple other items before we hop into some calls.
Well, I just want to say that all I could find on that was that people, I mean, like Snopes and places were saying, "Oh, this is taken out of context. You know, there just lacks context. Here's the deal: they were in this program that came about in the Trump era, by the way. You got to emphasize that, of course. That Biden expanded to this other thing, and we don't understand because it's not legal for them to be able to vote and accept money." And I'm like, which part of fraud did you not hear? I mean, well, it's not legal for them to do it, so it must not have happened.
I guess the case that they would make is
That's what they're saying.
Like, it's not fraud because it was legally facilitated by Joe Biden.
Come on, man.
But but that's the point, is that administration redefined how we handle border crossings in so many ways that if this is not fraud, it is just fraud by any other name. It's fraud dressed up and facilitated by the people in power.
There's over 2 million of these applicants. Do we have documentation that says, yep, they're all legal, they all deserve this, they all should have it? No, we're saying that it's legal that was legal, and it's only legal to give people like that social security number. So they couldn't have given illegal social security numbers. That makes no sense to me. I'm sorry. It's fraud, of course, because it's fraud. It wasn't legal.
Well, they just declare it legal and it becomes so. It's magical like that.
I guess.
But hey, remember the second guy who tried to kill Trump?
Oh yeah,
not that weird kid who actually got his shots off and hit Trump in the ear, but the second guy, the guy who was posted up with that SKS on the golf course in Florida. Ryan Routh was his name, or is his name. He's still alive. He's the story has kind of just disappeared, but he is still in federal custody. He is still being prosecuted. And we have some new filings from federal prosecutors in this case. He, I guess, had an even crazier plan, although every question that is raised about him in this story, you have to wonder who was proposing these ideas to him. And it does seem like there might have been a federal operative or two proposing certain possibilities to him. But according to a filing from federal prosecutors in this case on Monday, he wasn't just going to use that crappy SKS rifle that he had. He was trying to get an RPG, as in a rocket-propelled grenade or a Stinger rocket launcher. He was talking to someone he believed was a Ukrainian with access to military weapons, but probably was actually a
Fed.
So he told the
as
guy,
they say, go big or go home. You know, being married to Maud, I get both, of course. But you don't want to stop at a small one.
That's a great deal for you. Yeah. He told the guy, I need access to equipment so that Trump cannot get elected. And he was asked if this rocket launcher could be shipped to him. And in a free America, it probably could, but you need to go back several decades or a century to do that.
You should try AliExpress or something.
Temu? Do they have Temu rocket launchers?
Temu, that's right.
Yeah. Is it Temu or Temu? I've heard it both ways. I don't know.
I have to. I always say Temu.
Do they tariff? You got a big tariff on the Temu rocket launcher these days, I think.
That's right. Instead of paying $1.40, now I got to pay $200 now. Oh, well.
But yeah, I need access to equipment so that Trump can't get elected, and I want it shipped to me. And I guess he was just planning to go Halo on it, like that shoulder-mounted rocket launcher. He's going to jump all over. He's going to do the 360 trick shot before he rocket launchers Trump on the golf course. Maybe even teabags.
No, he's going after his plane. He wanted to shoot it down his plane with it.
Oh, is that actually what he was going to do? I guess that makes sense with a Stinger, but like with an RPG, you're not going to do that.
He sent him a picture of his plane and said that this Trump's plane, he gets on and off daily, which I guess means Trump really likes planes or something.
Oh, is that this is the thing with Dell. I never know if that's a bit or if that's
serious.
That's a serious part of the story. He was talking about the plane.
He did say Trump's plane, he gets on and off daily. He texted that.
Oh, okay. So he was actually he wasn't going to do the Halo. He was going to do the Call of Duty, take down the UAV that is Trump's plane. Although, it wouldn't be a UAV, but you get what I'm saying. Take down Trump's C-130 like this is Call of Duty 4.
That was his original idea, I believe. Yep.
Yeah.
I think he also tried to get a 50 cal too.
Yeah. Well, why couldn't he do that? If he can get the SKS, he can get the 50 cal.
No, they couldn't find one at the time, and they did find one, but after he'd been caught.
Oh. Well, then he sucked. They're not that hard to find.
Bad timing.
But anyway, we'll keep an eye on this. And really, like I said, the question is about Ryan Routh's intent. Was he trying to Halo rocket launcher Donald Trump? But who is feeding him this information? And then assuming it is some kind of federal informant, federal operative, the question is, why did it get as far as it did? Because think of, say, the Whitmer plot, where they were also talking about explosives. But that whole thing was, everybody knows that thing was a joke of a trap. But they set up all those guys to be caught in a very specific setting. In this case, we really didn't have that. Like, the whole thing on the golf course was not a trap to get this guy caught. He was there and happened to be noticed by Secret Service agents. So if there was federal involvement here, why did they let him get as far as they did, or he did? And and
have to use a witness too.
Did they want to join in on the teabagging of Donald Trump after he had been rocket launched? Maybe.
Yeah. That's a good question. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, I have a Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett update, the representative for Waffle House. She is back at it again with another banger. Now, Jasmine Crockett has just been on a roll lately. She said white supremacists commit 80% of the violent crime in this country. She said that black women are the most educated demographic. And she said, what was it the other week? She said she wanted to punch Ted Cruz in the face. And I think we all want to see that prize fight.
Did she?
But it's not happening. Wow. So over the weekend, she spoke at I wrote in my notes, a historically black college. Of course, we all know it's an historically black college in Connecticut. And she told the congregants that we need illegal immigrants because black people are done picking cotton. And so these immigrants have to do it.
So I had to go around the country and educate people about what immigrants do for this country, or the fact that we are a country of immigrants.
Right.
The fact is, ain't none of y'all trying to go and farm right now. Okay, so I'm lying. Raise your hands. You're not. We done picking cotton. We are. You can't pay us enough to find a plantation.
What does she have against the black farmer?
Apparently a lot. I mean, does she not know that some farmers are not white?
There are so many things implied by that statement. Now, ironically, of course, it's really the opposite. And I know all the fact checkers are going to tell, no, immigrants aren't stealing black jobs. What even is a black job? Immigrants aren't doing that. You'll see all that. Just think about this logically, okay? You have a bunch of people coming in, taking low skill, low paid jobs. Now, don't misunderstand. I'm not saying all black people take low skill, low paid jobs. I'm just saying any community that has an interest in entry level jobs is now going to face competition from all of these people who are coming in and undercutting the market. That means not only is it harder to find a job, but you will be paid less when you do because you are more replaceable. It's going to drive wages down.
That's the whole thing. It's like Americans don't want to take these jobs. You need to finish that sentence. Americans don't want to take these jobs and be paid pennies on the dollar.
Yes. Yeah, I will pick fruit in the field. Listen, Jasmine, I'll pick the cotton. There's a price. And, but that's the other funny thing about her statement is like, we done picking cotton, but it's someone else's time too. And she's talking in the context of slavery. That's the thing. Like we have machines that pick cotton and people that use the machines, and cotton picking is still done today, of course, but it's not done by slavery. So does she mean that she's okay with illegal immigrants being brought in as, if not actual, something close to slave labor? And of course, that appears to be the reality because whoever the photographer is over at the Babylon Bee got the photo. Jasmine Crockett floating down the mighty Mississippi in her riverboat on her way to purchase a fresh shipment of Mexican slaves. So,
and who's Trump going to get to clean his toilet anyway?
It does make sense. The thing is, like, I'm sure if we had to talk to Jasmine Crockett, honestly, she would not endorse the actual slavery of illegal immigrants. Although she's so crazy, I'm not sure. Maybe she wouldn't say that. But it does kind of fit within the philosophy insofar as people like Jasmine Crockett and people who share her philosophy, they believe that new racism is necessary to correct old racism. Why not new slavery to correct old slavery? Does she actually oppose that? If she could, not just enslave illegal immigrants, but if she could enslave white people for justice, to restore justice historically, would she do it? And I'm not confident that her answer is no. I could see her saying that is a good idea.
Well, it's scary, but you're absolutely right. There's a lot of people that their answer wouldn't be knowing that, and that's very scary.
Well, I have one more update. Now, I'm sure you followed the story of the unfortunate story of the murder or the alleged murder of Austin Metcalf at the Texas track meet last week. Depending on who you ask, it's either the Austin Metcalf murder or it's the Carmelo Anthony self-defense case. The Kyle Rittenhouse of the delusional progressive left. But part of that story, of course, was Austin Metcalf's dad, Jeff Metcalf, forgiving the killer Carmelo Anthony. Kind of borderline defending him, as we talked about on Sunday, but telling everyone not to racialize or politicize the story. Well, let's check in on the good graces that such compassion from Jeff Metcalf has earned him in the community of TikTok color, shall we? Surely this compassion, this understanding, earned compassion and understanding matched for him, correct? Well, let's take a look.
And to be honest with you, I blame Austin motherfucking parents for not teaching him not to bully and mistreat people just because they skin color. Okay? We wouldn't even be having this conversation if y'all didn't push that white privilege shit on your son. And you clearly see that they've been bothering that boy for him to be walking around with a pocket knife. They had to been bullying him, and he was tired of that shit. People get tired of being bullied. You think kids just walk around with pocket knives for nothing? No, he was tired of Austin and fucking with him.
Okay. It's Austin's dad's fault. That's
yep, that's right.
That's what happened there.
As I've seen people asking, since there hasn't been an outcry about racism here, they're like, "Where's the cry of racism here? Like we'd normally see if it was the other way around." I don't see it. Well, we are seeing cries of racism, and it's from the same place we normally get it.
Still,
from.
Now Austin
surprising.
Metcalf's a racist, and his dad is racist too, by proxy.
Yeah, exactly. He's got authority. He thinks he has privilege. He felt he was entitled to that seat. So he was pushing him around. That's right. That's why. And he was if they had taught him not to be a racist, then this might not have happened. I'm like, why am I not surprised at that? Why am I not surprised?
Of course, Jeff Metcalf, Austin's father, is getting blamed for supposedly teaching his son to be racist in this way. In fairness, you think one might ask Carmelo Anthony's dad, but sources say Carmelo's dad could not be reached for comment.
He's a good kid. He might just happen to bring a knife in his bag to a football game, but other than that, he's a good kid.
Carmelo's dad reportedly will be back from that cigarette run very soon. It's only been 15 years or so, but he's coming back.
It's not going to be easy for him to claim self-defense in this case, though. I looked up the self-defense laws in Texas, and you have to be in fear for your life as all.
Well, and if you provoke, I mean,
the big thing is to provoke.
Yeah, if you go there and provoke,
you must not provoke it,
which the witnesses say he did. It's not a self-defense case, even in a strong stand your ground state like Texas. Yeah.
Exactly.
And this is the thing, like, Austin Metcalf's dad, Jeff, he's so racist, or Austin's racist, and his dad taught him to be that way. Ironically, if they were more racist, it probably would have helped them in this case, actually. If they had been more racist against Carmelo Anthony and got him out of there quicker, faster, or had more suspicion of him, I'm not saying you should be racist. I'm just saying the idea that he died because he's racist, no, that is not why. There's probably too much deference given here. There's probably too much patience, too much understanding.
I think it was a heat of the moment thing. I think it was just a heat of the moment. If that guy hadn't brought a knife, nothing would have happened. It was just two kids getting into an argument.
Totally.
Starting to be alpha males
Yeah,
in each other's face, and one of them just happened to have a weapon.
Yeah, we've seen that. Or everybody's seen that. If you went to high school, like two guys who are just talking shit, and they're young men. They got their newfound testosterone flowing, and they don't know how to manage it. And unfortunately, in this case, it was a blade to the heart, and it sucks. Yep. I mean, it's a tragic situation for that family, and I really feel for that dad, and I wish the best for that family. I have some disputes with some of the things he said, but of course, I can sympathize with the situation.
It is tragic for both families. I will say that.
Yeah. The whole situation sucks. But anyway, there's no way to transition out of that. We should probably just get to callers. You want to hop in the Discord room?
We didn't talk about. So when I hop into the Discord, I lose audio for some reason. I don't know why. Let me try to fix that while I talk here. We didn't talk about the hands off protest.
Oh, that was Sunday. Did I send you the wrong thing?
That was Sunday. No, I didn't get to see the Sunday class. I was going to tell you that Maud was at the hands off. Maud was at.
You have a Maud joke about hands off. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, she said she was at a hands off protest. Well, I don't know if that's true or not. She said she was at she was over there at the Best Buy, and they were shouting, "Hands off that TV! Hands off that computer! Hands off that laptop!"
I thought you were going to say it's easy for Maud to go to a hands off protest because it's always hands off with Maud. Nobody wants to have any hands on that thing.
Well, that's true too. I think.
Yeah.
Let me see if I think it might be my audio here, but I don't know why I can't hear anything. But we can start.
I can bring in a caller. You can see if you can get it figured out. Let me bring in a caller.
I'll get it figured out.
Bobble, go ahead. We're still. Hold on. Speaking of tech, there we go. Sorry, I always forget to unmute myself when I pull callers in. Go ahead, Bobble. I'm trying to get Del in here, so he can't hear you for the moment. But what do you got for us?
So a couple things. First, I wanted to ask if you had seen this happened like 2 days ago, because when I'm here, I usually end up talking about gun stuff, so I figured it was worth it. The ATF rescinded its zero tolerance rule for FFLs that make little tiny paperwork mistakes, and so that was something that they did consistently during the Biden administration, where they were like, oh, you're a one-man FFL in your house. You made one tiny mistake on your paperwork. We're going to take away your license now.
So they're ending that practice, you're saying?
Yep, they ended that practice as of a couple days ago. It was officially rescinded. I mean, next, hopefully they'll just rescind the entire agency. But I figured you might appreciate that.
Yeah, I didn't hear that. So thank you for that news. And yeah, any way they could to make being in the business of selling guns harder, they were trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's great for, and of course, if you're just the mom and pop gun shop and you made an honest mistake on some, gun sale form, they're going to try to go after you and act like you're some kind of like guy arming the cartels or something like that. No, they want to make it harder for people in the business of selling guns to operate and to intimidate people from entering that industry. It clearly was a power exercise in that way.
Oh yeah, I've been in that industry for like 5 or 6 years now, and being very particular and picky about paperwork, especially where I live in New Jersey, where they're just way more aggressive about it anyway. But being very picky and particular on that paperwork was one of the things they like drilled into us as a gun salesman. But anyway,
I'm not going to ask you where you work, but are we talking like small shop? Are we talking like big box store? What kind of shop are you in?
Like gun store specifically, but like, I mean, this is the thing in Jersey where I live, they don't have stores that are small really because it's too expensive here. So like, I'm not at a big box store, but like one of the bigger stores in the state. But,
and they obviously trained you not to make mistakes, which makes sense given the legal landscape. But in your job experience, did you guys have any interaction with this sort of thing? Like, did you ever get in trouble for errors on paperwork?
Well, we got in trouble internally for errors on paper.
No, I mean, like, did the feds come after you at all or anything like that?
No, it was so the ATF came in like once a year to do an audit, basically, and they'd have an agent who'd sit in a room and like go through all of our boxes of paperwork. But everything that was there had been like double and triple and quadruple checked by like 4 layers of people to make sure that it was as perfect as possible. And from what I remember, if they ever caught, like if they ever caught a couple mistakes here and there, I don't seem to ever remember them being super brutal about it. Like, I'm pretty sure they were like, oh, hey, here's this is what we found, get this fixed, and then we'll be out of your hair. I mean, again, I didn't really ever interact with them directly myself, but I know the management people were, everybody was always like a little bit like, on edge, looking over their shoulder when the ATF was around to check the paperwork.
Yeah. Well, thanks for the information. I hadn't heard that. And of course, the continuing undoing of not just the overstepping at the ATF, but hopefully the agency itself is welcome news.
I'm super excited to hear it. It's a little thing, but like I knew it was one of the more pernicious kind of ways they were figuring to kind of like, find ways of shutting people down and removing people's ability to get to purchase firearms without actually having to pass laws. It was just like, if we just kind of around the corners remove as many smaller dealers and people as we can, then maybe no one will notice it.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to see it. So
well, thank you for the call. Have a great night.
Yeah, of course. Have a good night.
Oh, hold on. I need a cough break. I'm dying here. 1 second. All right. My apology. What do you got?
I just saw that Kash Patel step down as or he was removed. I guess he was apparently head of the ATF as well as the
wait, he was removed as what?
Head of the ATF.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to say FBI. But yeah, he was kind of acting.
I saw
ATF guy.
that's what I thought when I first saw it. I was like, what the hell? And I was, I see.
So that would suggest that so there's Army Secretary Dan Driscoll, who's replaced Kash Patel as acting chief. Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, I will assume hopefully he's not an insane person, but anybody you never know. You never know what the ATF does to a man. So we'll find out. All right. Ratchet Republican is up next. Ratchet Republican, are you there? Ratchet.
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, all right. What do you got for us?
Doing good, doing good. Yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about the white kid that got stabbed, Metcalf.
Mm-hmm.
And I've noticed a lot of reckless rhetoric coming from the right and reckless rhetoric coming from the left. A lot of people going into their silos. And I want to start with the right. I see a lot of saying on the right talking about you blacks and those blacks, and like we're a monolith, and that his actions were a representation of most blacks, that we're genetically violent. And that's simply not true, because when I don't see that type of behavior when I was growing up when I was younger. When I grew up, when I went to high school in Jamaica, I never recalled any fights at all in the whole time that I was in high school. And
not even over bobsledding? Not even at the bobsled meet?
No. Even
cool runnings right there.
Yes. And even against teachers, I never saw any disrespect or anything, because, if your parents were called to school prior to it being released, you would get an ass whooping. So we never had that type of incidents happening when I was growing up. So this is more of a cultural thing. This is not a genetic thing. And there's this thing about, black ghetto culture, which Thomas Sowell has done extensive research on, and that it stems from low-class assimilation of low-class British culture. And there is black ghetto culture, and there is white ghetto culture, where they have the same pathologies and has the same outcomes, where you have single white mothers that have fathers in jail, the baby mamas, and it leads to the same outcomes as
I've seen a lot of data to the opposite effect, though, that when you control for socioeconomic factors, rates of crime and violence remain elevated in black communities. And I'll certainly take your point that the individual ought to be judged as the individual, but these group realities also exist.
Yes, I'm not.
I think it's peer pressure.
It could be. I'll have to wind down the call, but I'll give you the final word on, if we accept your premise that it's a cultural issue. My question would be how does that get fixed and when? And this is probably a 20-minute answer. Where's the best example of where it has improved?
Okay, so that would lead me to going to the left. Like,
okay.
I don't know if you know Amazing Lucas. He's talking about that it was self-defense and it was stand your ground nonsense, which doesn't make any sense because he wasn't allowed to be there. He wasn't his property, it wasn't his car, property or anything. So it wasn't a stand your ground offense. And you see a lot of, in reaction to the right, the left is getting tribal, especially the blacks on the left, and they are protecting him and making excuses for him. And the only way to fight this is to hold accountable the people who are making the criminals. But the problem is that the black community is very tribal, and the tribalism seeps into our morality in that it encapsulates criminals. So we stand up for our criminals, snitches get stitches and stuff like that. And we just, because the criminal has our melanin content, we feel the need to even though that person hurts our community, we feel the need to defend them. And that's something that allows these criminals to fester in our community, despite the fact that it's a small amount. It's not the majority in our community. It's the small 5 to 10% in our community that's creating the problems. And because we allow them to do that, that's why it festers in our community.
Yeah, if we could do the Terminator meme of just arresting criminals regardless of the racial demographics of the criminals, that would be a huge point for progress. But maybe someday. Appreciate your call, man. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Do you have any thoughts you want to offer on that, Del?
Like I said, I think it's mostly peer pressure. People in groups, and like you said, tribalism. It's like when you're in an environment where everyone around you is like, you need to do this, you need to do that. If
When you say peer pressure, you mean like within a gang or something? Like you are going to commit this crime or do this activity?
Just no, in general, like the neighborhood or the people around you who are, some people have a feeling, they'll push it on. 3 people have a feeling, they'll push it on to a 4th. That kind of thing, where it's definitely racism. It's all whites are racist, and that people grow up hearing that and they think it, and they teach their kids that, and it just keeps going out from there. Where people just keep saying it. I mean, people say it then the other way around too, where people will sit there and say, yeah, people who are black, man, they're no good, they're ignorant and stuff. That's and they teach their kids that, and those kids teach their kids that, and it goes out, and that's why you get people like that. You get large numbers. Unfortunately, you also have people who make money on this stuff. The race hustlers who will come out and say, hey, you need to be this way. You need to beware. These people are like, whites are going to come after you. So blacks are like, oh my gosh, I got to be careful. Or at least their friends are like, you know what? I heard this guy say that the other day, so you need to be doing it too.
So that's interesting. There's like an industrial,
a bunch of people will get on you.
Yeah, when you talk about the actual financial incentive, there's like an industrial or commercial need for Austin Metcalf to be a race motivated aggressor. I'm going to talk a little bit about it on in the Hoax Hate segment on Sunday, because I've been saving a few examples. They are faking posts to make him a racist. Now, there's no evidence that he did anything racially motivated, said anything racially motivated. At least I've not seen it. I'll evaluate it if it's out there. Mm-hmm. But there are examples of posts faked. Like they fake Instagram posts that he supposedly made that he didn't, to try to make him a racist. I usually think of these things like in terms of the ideological need. We need this to prop up the ideology that we have to be true, so we fake it.
Yeah.
Your point about the commercial component is interesting. Like there's a financial incentive. And we know that.
Yep.
Look at the GoFundMe for Carmelo Anthony. Now, if I had to choose, All right, I want fundraising to be more free than not, even though there's a ton of fraud, and even though you can fundraise for bad people who are guilty. But the last thing I want is like too much thumb on the scale from GoFundMe or Give, Send, Go, policing who can and can't raise money for a legal defense and that sort of thing. So even though I would not donate, and I would not encourage people to donate to the defense fund of Carmelo Anthony, I'm not out there like trying to bang down the door to have Give, Send, Go ban it or something like that, because I recognize that the same thing was done to Kyle Rittenhouse, and Kyle Rittenhouse needed the legal defense. And the idea in our country is that everybody's entitled to the best legal defense that they can get. But yeah, I mean, I think the volume of money gone to that fund, and we'll find out if it even does defend him or if it's another Black Lives Matter mansion purchase. That shows, I think, a lot of what you're talking about, that there's a very real, viable commercial incentive in a lot of the race hustling industry. Yeah. Anyway, last call is going to go to Turles. Turles, are you there?
Hello there, gentlemen.
What do you got for us?
Howdy, howdy.
Hey, well, you may recall 2 weeks ago, I had some book thoughts, but I ended up having a little bit of a debate with the guest Stephen Baker instead. So I'm back with my my book recommendation. I was kind of glad you were talking about the Direwolf today, because it ties in. And you may I don't think you've talked about this. Did you see that story that was kind of viral on X or Twitter if you're stubborn like me? It was a story about this company called Orchid. New York Times ran a piece about them and how they're this company that is pushing embryo selection, and they supposedly screen for all of these things, these potential genetic disorders, or even just traits like, eye color or whatever. And did you see any of that?
No, this is all news to me. I mean, I'm familiar with the concept, but that particular company, no.
Yeah. So yeah, it's called Orchid, and like I say, the New York Times ran a piece about it, and there's a post on Twitter or X from a founder. I guess her name is Noor Siddiqui, however you pronounce it. Who knows?
Sounds
she's got kind of
Somali or something. Who knows?
Yeah. She's got kind of this weird sob story about how her mom started going blind with retinitis pigmentosa, no family history, no treatments, no cure. And she starts this company that goes on to that boasts screening of embryos who might have traits like the one that her mom did. And it's just totally bizarre, of course, because if her mom was screened, she would not exist. She would not even have been born.
Yeah.
So this is kind of like you and Frank were talking about, this whole idea of playing God, of sitting in the seat of creation, so to speak, and saying we're going to recreate life in our own image, or as we see fit. And anyway, book recommendation is all about this short book. C.S. Lewis is called The Abolition of Man. Very short. You can listen to the audiobook in under 2 hours, like an hour and 40 minutes or something. So you don't have to commit to anything too serious. But I know you liked the other Lewis book and Mere Christianity.
And pretty much everything I've encountered from C.S. Lewis is not only well written in like a clever, concise way, but just really philosophically sound. So I'm a fan.
Yeah, and you can actually borrow the audiobook for free on Hoopla. You can, so not even a big financial commitment. And so I would recommend that to anybody. And hopefully I get to make some more book recommendations in the future. I've kind of a project going on here where I'm trying to educate people on what I think are the two basic worldviews that we have available to us, which is, it is conservatism and progressivism, essentially. One being there are objective truths, there's a certain order to the universe, and the other being it's laissez-faire, we can do whatever we want, there are no guardrails, etc.
All right. Well, thank you for the call and the recommendation. Appreciate it.
Sure. I'll talk to you next time.
All right. Have a good night. Okay, that'll do it for callers tonight. Appreciate everybody who called in. But on the topic of like selecting your children or selecting for traits in your children, one of the things I think about often, of course, my wife and I had the miscarriage last summer. My wife is pregnant now with our third on the way in September. God willing, that'll be a healthy baby. As far as we know, it is now. But without getting like too graphic or like too gross, you ever think about the fact that your children are the product of every decision you've ever made because they were conceived at a particular point that only could have happened if it were for everything that preceded it? You get what I'm saying? Like, you know, we lost a child of ours last summer who I won't know, at least in this world. And genetically, that child is basically the two boys that we have, but it's not. It's not the same person. That child had different traits, X, Y, and Z, and that child can only exist once. It will only ever exist once. You ever think about that? That like that person could only have come into being at that particular point in time.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if it hadn't been for that, for example, if they hadn't been having conjugal visits that day, Dale Jr. would never have been born.
It's sorry, what?
Don't worry about it.
See, this is what I'm talking about. I'm like, is that a serious? That's why I didn't laugh. It's because I'm like, that might be real, and I don't want to mock his family.
My two kids are probably the best thing I've ever created. I mean, they're my world, and they're the best thing ever. I mean, I know people that don't have children, and I feel sorry for them because they don't know what the rewards and everything you get from them. But I don't know, picking your kids, that takes some of the fun out of it. I think that's like just like I play video games. I like to hit random. I don't like to.
Yeah, we all love the spin. We all love the mystery box.
Yep.
Of course, you don't make everything a mystery. You should pick a spouse who is a suitable parent and all those things. But yeah, this like specific trait selection stuff, no. I mean, even the context of like eliminating disabilities, diseases, count me out on playing God in really any context. Just handle things the natural way and suffer the consequences that may happen, because I guarantee you the consequences of trying to become God are far worse. So I'll steer clear of those. All right. You want to take some email questions with me?
Yeah.
So as a reminder, because I always forget to give people a reminder for how they send email questions. If you would like to send an email question to the show, just head on over to the contacts page on my website, mattchristiansenmedia.com/contact. Look for that MC Live questions box on the right-hand side. You put the question in there. That helps Tim and me because it keeps all the questions in one spot. Now, because we missed email questions last week due to producer error from Tim, I have a backlog of questions and can't take them all this week. But if I didn't get to yours, I may come back to it. I've got a list of them. Or of course you can send another question in future weeks. But let's get into some of these. Euro looking for a green card. Hey Matt, the show that let's see. In the show that in the show that once was, as in the prior iteration of this show. In the show that once was, you mentioned on a few occasions how the show Yellowstone went woke in the later seasons. Having watched all episodes now myself, I wonder what you saw as being woke in the show. I didn't really pick up on anything myself. I didn't think it went woke. And there was a lot of claims that it did. Mm-hmm. I thought that was kind of overstated. Are you a Yellowstone watcher?
I have not watched it, no.
Okay.
I may watch it someday, I may not. I don't know.
I would recommend it, but I thought the criticism that it was woke in the ending or the latter seasons, I thought was overblown. There were a few moments here and there in the show that had touches of progressive philosophy from some of the characters. But overall,
it's hard.
Go ahead.
It's hard to look at things and tell whether this is they shoehorn this in as some kind of progressive message, or if this is something that would happen normally like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Because we're all hypersensitive to that kind of stuff these days.
Yeah, I mean, there were a few moments here and there, but really it's not a show about racial and gender politics. It is a show about self-sufficiency. It is a show about the battle of tradition versus modernity, which I love. And I didn't love the final season because I thought some of the story didn't make a lot of sense. Now, Kevin Costner quit the show. They couldn't reach a deal. And so they had to write out the main character of the show. And anytime you do that, the way the character disappears is not always satisfying. I wasn't super satisfied with how that character was written out. And spoiler alert, how the end of the ranch came to be. But it really had nothing to do with like politics or wokeism or anything like that. I didn't love
a tornado.
That would have been
picked up by a tornado and whisked away, and his son had to sit there watching.
Would have been a better story than the one written. Although, Taylor Sheridan's a great writer. I like his stuff overall. 1883 is great. My family's watching 1923 right now. Great show. Love Yellowstone and the entire Yellowstone universe. So even though I didn't love the ending, I mean, the show and the franchise is still A+ overall. So, but yeah, wokeism was not a problem to me. Just questionable writing choices. That's all. From like a plot perspective.
Yeah.
Aggie engineer Matt, on a related note to your Wednesday video, I think this is Wednesday last week, talking about the Minneapolis lawsuit. I would like to hear your opinion on the constitutional duty of police to protect you, or the lack thereof. On the one hand, I believe in the rights of the individual to defend themselves and to avoid danger when possible. On the other, police are agents of the state who are paid to enforce the law, and in many places will actively hinder your efforts to defend yourself. If the state maintains a monopoly on violence, should they be required to use that violence on your behalf? Is this responsibility stronger in places where they have legally hindered your right to self-defense? Now, that second part is the interesting part of this question. Like, if they stop you from doing it and then they don't protect you, are they taking on a liability? In a general context, I don't like the concept of positive rights, as in a right to be provided or given something, or given a service in this case, even protection.
If it's being forced on you, though.
Yeah, I mean, that is potentially where you have something to solve, but I still think the solution is political rather than, say, like lawsuits. But the way you solve this, police forces that are organized and accountable locally are a good thing. I know there's a lot of anti-police people who want to do away with the police, have all security and policing done privately. Maybe, I'm not saying it's impossible, but I think if you have policing that's accountable locally, whether it's publicly or privately, that's the way you do it. But lawsuits against the police for failing to protect you, I kind of view as the same as lawsuits against people in healthcare for failing to fix you. And there certainly are extreme cases where maybe terrible negligence is shown, or maybe even malice, like they intentionally injured you.
Well, I could see that if they didn't let you do your own medicine. In other words, if they're sitting there telling you cannot take medicine, you have to have a health person take care of you.
It's the monopoly.
And then the health person doesn't take care of you.
Yeah.
Then that's what I think is more akin to what they're talking about with the protection thing.
So the monopoly angle is the thing to get around. How do you solve it? Is it lawsuits, or is it political accountability? And I still think the answer should be political accountability there. You need to vote for strong law enforcement in your community. Of course, this doesn't really get us around the problem of the feds, but if you vote for strong law enforcement in your community, a strong sheriff in your community, you're going to get somebody who's not only committed to defending your community, but committed to defending your right to defend yourself. And as long as those factors are present, obviously, I don't favor lawsuits in that case for the same reason I don't favor them in the medical context. It makes it harder to do the necessary job of protecting or fixing people, not easier. So that's why I say I think that the solution is a political one, not a courtroom question. But do you disagree with that?
I can see that. I mean, I wouldn't be voting for more protection, but like you said, but I'd be voting for stop taking away my rights.
Yeah, and they go hand in hand. Like strong law enforcement and strong protection of rights are they're not in conflict. They should be complementary things.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Let's see. Dandelion says, do you think that Trump supporters who say the pain from Trump's tariffs and dubious economic policies is simply short-term pain for long-term gain are coping? I don't think they're coping. I think what was a plausible explanation for what we're seeing is the strategy of exercising leverage against other countries to get them to do what we want them to do is potentially playing out now with the news on tariffs today. The only cope that at least in my opinion, that I saw was turning around and claiming that some of these things are good. There were tweets, messages, whatever, from people whose opinions I normally agree with that are trying to tell me it's good when the markets drop because now you're going to get cheaper this or discount that. Or you're trying to tell me that I don't need the new iPhone or the new Xbox as though you have the right to tell me what I need.
Exactly.
I might even agree with you that we're like a too connected society or too technologically dependent, but I'm not the government. You don't get to tell other people what they need. That was the cope on the tariffs to me, is like totally switching to borderline commie talking points because you want to prop up Trump. And Trump might have been right about this whole thing. Again, the trajectory is looking good today.
Mm-hmm.
So that's great, but you don't have to
not looking good.
Yeah, you don't have to reverse
not looking good for. Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, you don't have to reverse and like and embrace insane talking points about like what you need or economic downturn is actually beneficial because you get discounted stuff.
Economic downturn is never very beneficial, but I would say the people that are still suffering are going to be China, and we call them China.
Yeah,
Chinese people. We like the Chinese people, but the government not so much.
All right, that's enough of the Trump.
I got to work on that.
You need to work on the Trump. Yeah. All right. Kitchen saying, Matt, have you done any more hunting or related outdoor stuff since your elk hunt a few years ago? If so, what's the story? I understand the kids take up a lot of time. If you want to get into parallel sport, which is great as a stress reliever, try archery. That's fantastic, calming and rewarding. Also, has Frank, who I think is the guest this week, ever hunted? Well, I don't know if Frank has, but I could ask him next time. No, I've not done hunting beyond the elk hunt that I took a couple years ago. Frankly, I just don't have time for things that require so much time. My business
start taking time when them direwolves hit.
I know. After the fall's events, my business is kind of in survival mode, transition mode. Like I got to work hard to make sure that there is something on the other side of this. That takes up pretty much all my time. The time I have left over beyond that obviously has to be dedicated to my family. I really don't have blocks of time to just disappear into the woods for a long period, even though I would love to do that. But maybe when my sons are a little older, we can disappear into the woods. But it's kind of on pause for me for the moment. Nate says, hey, Matt, are you familiar with the iron law of oligarchy? It has two premises. One, organized minorities beat unorganized majorities. Two, it is easier to organize a small group of people than a large group of people. Robert Michaels, I'm not sure, observed this in the 1800s and suggested any organization large and complex enough will turn into an oligarchy regardless of any or all democratic controls. Your thoughts? Well, I don't know, but I've never heard this formal explanation or theory before. I mean, but the idea that organized minorities beat blob-like majorities, that makes a lot of sense to me, and not just in theory. We've seen it happen in our own country many times in recent history. You have loud, organized minorities exercising their will, achieving their ends by just being angry and loud and obnoxious until people say, fine, please just leave us alone. We'll do whatever you want. And they browbeat the kind of normie fence sitter type person who doesn't really want to get into politics, but isn't looking to make a ruckus or cause a disturbance. Look at COVID. Like the reason that most people didn't believe the COVID bullshit, I'll never forget it. When the mask mandate went away here, the governor's mask mandate in Montana, the day he took that off, or the day he rescinded that mask mandate, you go to the store, nobody had a mask on anymore. You went to the store yesterday, 95% of people had a mask on. That tells me they were just doing what they were told to do. What does it mean? A loud, forceful minority imposed their will on them and they complied. That's what happened there. So it's kind of a question of like even military tactics. If you told me you have an objective to take, like you just need to conquer that piece of land, and I will give you either 100 spec ops guys or 1,000 of the worst performing soldiers, which are you going to take? There's something to be said for numbers. Okay. Numbers matter, but capability, strength, all of those things matter too. So I'm probably depending on what I need to do, assuming it's more than just like rush bodies at them, Russia style. I'm taking the fewer, more qualified people.
That's true. That's very true. It's like they get you riled up emotionally. That's what Jasmine Crockett was saying, I believe, in that video. She was saying they're able to divide us. because they get you riled up emotionally. They're getting you distracted, she said, while getting everybody riled up emotionally and getting them distracted.
Yeah. The masters of projection. Yeah. Orthobra Andrew. Hey, Matt, could you ballpark the percentage of people who haven't gone back to work since COVID that you think are stay-at-home moms? I suspect that the people don't want to go back to work narrative is a bit overblown. Now, so this goes back to what I mentioned a little bit on Sunday, and I've mentioned many times in recent years. The labor force participation rate in this country, the people participating in the economy that could, is still something like 62%, which is below where it was pre-COVID, meaning we have fewer people working today than we did before all the corona nonsense. And that's a problem. At least I interpret that to be a problem. Now he's saying maybe that's like stay-at-home moms. We have something like 1.5 to 2 million people who were working then who aren't working now. Maybe that's a lot of stay-at-home moms. And I hadn't really considered that possibility, though of course it's plausible. And that would be a positive interpretation of the jobs numbers or the economic numbers, not because I'm trying to force women back into the kitchen or something, but because guess what? Moms taking care of their own kids, that's a good thing. And that is productivity that is not captured by economic data. So that would be actually a great thing if it's what's happening. So I got curious when I saw this earlier, and I thought, well, they got to have like labor force participation by gender, right? Like men versus women. So I had like 5 minutes, 10 minutes to look at this, Orthobra. So I might be wrong, but my quick examination, women's labor force participation rate today is 57.5%. That is up from 56.1% in 2019 pre-COVID. So that's more women who have entered the workforce since COVID. Men's labor force participation rate today is 67.8%. That's down 2% from 69.2% from 2019 pre-COVID. And it's been flat over like the last 3-4 years. So that's a lot of numbers. What I'm telling you is relative to pre-COVID, more women are working now as a percentage than were working then. More women have entered the workforce and more men have left it. It's possible that the men are becoming stay-at-home dads, which I guess would also be kind of a positive interpretation, though, I still have questions about who the best homemaker is, but okay. I mean, that still might be something. But if the theory is that women have gone back to take care of their kids or their families, no, it's actually more women working today than there were before, not fewer.
Well, that was well, which side of the aisle are they on? I mean, that's what they push over there on the left is that, oh, you're a strong woman. You don't need to be home with your kids. You need to be in the office. And then maybe they get their husbands like, you know what? She's right. I need to be in the office. You need to be home with the kids. And so as a result, they switch roles.
I'll take someone home with the kids. Someone home with the kids instead of like a daycare situation. I'm not trying to say if you put your kids in daycare, that's bad. I understand it's the cost of childcare these days. Expensive. And I mean, it's very, very hard. And I know that I'm very fortunate to have my wife raising our kids, and I'm very glad to have that. And so I'm not
easier to strap them down with bungees and put the TV in front of them all day.
I'm not looking down on anybody who uses daycare. Of course, I get the reality is what it is, and you got bills to pay and all of that. But yeah, anyway, where was I going with that? I don't remember. If that's the best possible interpretation is we have more parents taking care of their kids. The worst possible interpretation is we have all this government bloat and all these benefit programs and all these incentives not to work. Are people just finding ways not to work? And based on my broad read of the data, it looks more like people finding ways not to work than, say, women going home and taking care of the kids, unfortunately. But there's probably more to learn in the data. So if I spend some time doing that, I could probably get a better answer for you. But I appreciate the point on that, because the reason I appreciate that point is because whenever we see things that look like economic downturn or economic decay, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? Be my thesaurus. Economic decline. That is not always the case. That is to say, there are lots of ways for people to be productive that aren't captured in, say, Bureau of Labor Statistics analysis. And so I'll try to be mindful of that too. Like,
that's true.
Sometimes working in the workforce is a worse thing. And for a lot of mothers, it probably is. But anyway, Appreciate the thoughts. Once again, if you'd like to send a email question, you can do that through the contact page of my website, mattchristiansenmedia.com/contact. Look for the MC Live questions box. And of course, we appreciate our email, our question emailers very much.
We love you. You're very special.
All right, we got to catch up with Super Chat and we're out of here. I'll head on over to Rumble. GR, he's back. Hey, you dirty ass rigger. Always trying to get me. It's good to see Frank on again. I was actually expecting him last week, even though I missed most of the stream. Yeah, it was his birthday, but he is back. Friendly call screener, Dangerous Spaces. Thank you, GR. Got a sequence of them here. Why would you resurrect something with the name dire in it? Firstly, all definitions of dire describe something bad, and one definition is a warning of a threat, presaging? I don't know that word. You've stumped me with this vocabulary, but warning of disaster. Idiots. Maybe they picked it for that reason, though. You know, Frank thinks this is all like a means to an end. Maybe let's get the Direwolf because it's got a subtle clue about it. You think so?
It's weapons technology, weapons stuff. That's what they're doing right now. It's in the weapons division.
That'll be like Call of Duty too. They'll be deploying the dogs to come to get us. You know, they'll have all the kill streaks. Dangerous Spaces also says, I think scientists are incredibly arrogant in thinking that they know what will happen when they muck around with things like DNA. Not going to result in a worldwide virus, just as a random example. Yeah. And I wonder, like, I don't know genetic splicing in this way. Is it like a Lego thing where you just kind of like, and also I assume you can make mistakes. And what happens if you make a mistake? Like, oh, I'm giving this direwolf the big pointy ears that the direwolves have. But what if you put that in the DNA spot that's for, like, I don't know, his foot or his butt or something? Like, what happens if you put that genetic instruction in the wrong place in the code? What do you get?
Yeah, that's a good point.
I don't know.
That's kind of scary. You have to know with teeth in their butt.
Yeah, I don't know. Dangerous Spaces continues. What Frank is describing is the plot of Michael Bay movie called The Island. Conscious living, breathing clones grown and killed to serve rich celebrities or to give rich celebrities spare body parts. You ever heard of that? These ethically sourced bodyoids? That was news to me.
I saw that. That was a little, that's a little, how was that ethical? I mean, oh my God.
I am curious about the ethical sourcing. Did you grow them in a lab? That has ethical questions. Did you harvest the body from, I guess the only way I could see it as ethical is the sort of thing that already exists in the context of organ donation when you die or something like that. But if you're creating human parts for the purpose of transplanting them in others, the ethics of creating human beings or human parts for those purposes, that is not
harvesting. Yeah.
Yeah. That is, no, there's no ethical sourcing in that scenario. The next federal holiday or the next federal election in Australia, I assume, is May 3rd. The date was announced March 28th. That is a 37-day election campaign. People saying Kamala didn't have enough time to properly campaign can fuck all the way off. I know you guys do it all weird. I do, man. I don't like limiting the way people can communicate and how they can campaign in this context. I don't like that on principle. Because, I mean, if it's not an infringement on speech, it's kind of right there adjacent. But, man, do you think we should have, like... Sorry, the campaign is a month. That is what it is. And you can't campaign ad.
You can't stop that. You can't stop it. There's you have PACs and all these other super PACs and things and all these non-affiliated places that'll start campaigning for them. There's no way to stop it.
If you could write a law, would you?
Nah, probably not. I mean,
all right.
I'd probably write a law that says the president can't stop being president for 2 years while he campaigns. But other than that,
yeah. Well, I don't know.
Or that he actually has to be coherent and actually be president and not some shadow government.
I could kind of warm up to it. It's not a content-based speech restriction. Like, you can't stop someone from just going out and giving a speech. But if you're spending campaign money on a political message, maybe you just do it in advertising or something like that. Like, you can't stop a guy from talking. But this isn't really like,
it's free speech.
this isn't censorship based on the content of the viewpoint. Like it's not, you can't say this opinion or that opinion. It's sort of a time, place, and manner restriction on when a message can be delivered, in the same way you can't go into your town square at midnight and yell in a bullhorn, regardless of perspective.
You can. You'll probably get chastised for it, maybe even arrested for.
That's what I'm saying. Like you will be arrested if you don't stop. And so those have been acceptable as First Amendment square. Like, why not a law that says, sorry, the campaign season is a month long? Anyway, just floating ideas to make these people shut up. That's all.
I don't know. I mean, I don't want to infringe on free speech in any if you can help it.
All right, fine. Anyway, over on Odyssey. Thank you for the memes from Blankets. Matt, did you hear Orange Man said Whitmer is a very good person? I did see that right before the show. Whitmer was at the Oval Office for some reason today, the Michigan governor. And he did say she's very nice, or very good person. No, she's not. So yeah, that sucks if he said that. I don't know the context, so I'll have to look at it. He said,
He's being polite.
Orange Man said Whitmer has done excellent as governor of Michigan. How has she done excellent as governor? Well, of course she has not. But anyway, we're just going to, I don't know. I assume there's some kind of context.
He's just playing politics. He's just playing business. That's all he's doing.
All right. Thank you.
He says good things about Putin and Z all the time. So he's playing politics.
Maybe.
He knows what he's doing.
Let's try over on YouTube. We'll close out on YouTube here. We'll call it a night. Adriano Celentano. Why do we need the woolly mammoth back? Because they probably taste great. Are you really telling me you don't want a giant forest puppy? Well, I don't know. Do people eat elephant meat? I assume they do.
Probably. They eat anything. Lord knows.
Have you ever tried elephant meat?
If it's part of the animal, they'll eat it. Someone's going to eat it. You trust me on that one. There are places that are delicacies where they'll eat things that I wouldn't dream of getting anywhere near my mouth.
Your mic is getting super quiet for me, so I might have to. I got to bump you or get that thing.
I knocked it a second ago.
Yeah, that's probably why.
But yeah, like I wouldn't. There's things that I wouldn't put into my mouth that some people will sit there and eat all day long. It's like there's parts of animals you're not supposed to eat. Trust me.
That's a big game, man.
I'll take your word for it. Let's see. Adriano Celentano. I recently took an online autism test and found out I am level 1 on the spectrum. Will riding trains more help me level up? Is this a reference? Are you referencing what I think you're referencing? This is a deep, deep cut if you are. But so I don't know what the train thing is, other than one of the pieces of trash TV that my wife and I like to watch. Have you heard of this show, Love on the Spectrum?
I have not.
This is a dating show for people with developmental disabilities who are on the autism spectrum. And one of them this season loves trains. Like, she loves the Boston train to a ridiculous degree. You think of like a Beatles super fan. That's what she is for the public transit train in Boston for some reason. So that's the only train reference I know about people on the spectrum. I don't know if you're referencing that or not. But the show, I'm really conflicted about the show because it is a cringe that is the top level of what I can handle as someone who enjoys watching cringe. However, and I think the producers actually do it pretty tastefully, but at points it does feel exploitative. And that's why I have I feel bad watching it sometimes. You know what I mean?
That is horrifying. I cannot believe it. I mean, not the show that you watch it.
I know I'm a terrible person, but on the other side of it, it's not pure like point and laugh cringe or something like that. A lot of these relationships work out, and it's so freaking wholesome to see these parents who have, young adult children who are trying to lead normal lives, find a romantic partner and sort of come into that stage of adulthood. There's like, it's not just like a mockery thing. There are very serious components to it that are nice to see too. It's incredibly wholesome in that way. So it's a show with like a lot going on that is difficult to process psychologically.
Who cares if they're exploiting me? I'm going to get laid.
It's more than that, but yeah, I mean, it's something else, man. That show is unlike any other. And I don't even know if that's what Adriano is watching.
I'll take your word for it.
Or referencing, but yeah. Rich says bodyoids is literally the plot of The Island. Rich people pay to have their bodies replicated, and if they are ever sick or injured, their clone is killed and the necessary organs or parts are harvested. So I guess, yeah, Frank is just reading the plot to a Michael Bay movie. But hey, it happened with Jurassic Park. They did that. Why can't they do The Island? That makes sense to me.
Yep.
Long Dong John says, so I take it the Canadian tariffs are sticking around as they retaliated repeatedly. How about that, eh? Yeah, well, Canada, I guess, has effed around, and we'll continue to find out. We'll see if there's any resolution. Excuse me. Long Dong John, man, if a real-world Jurassic Park was ever created, would you visit it? Not after seeing the movie, even though I love dinosaurs. Like as a kid, paleontology and all that, everything about Jurassic Park was so fascinating to me. As I mentioned on the stream before, until my dad took me to a paleontological or a paleontology dig in South Dakota, and it was so boring that my entire career trajectory changed. And I don't know, 8-year-old me said, Dad, I want to run an online podcast as some sort of means of a career. And that's when I decided. But yeah.
Yeah, I think that our society is just trying to make all these horror movies come to life. Like, we're getting ready to have the Terminator situation soon too, as well, with AI. So
that's what was funny in that news story. They said like, "Oh, this isn't like Jurassic Park because we're trying to save the animals or whatever." No, this is worse than Jurassic Park because in Jurassic Park they had the sense to put it on an island that was isolated. in this scenario, you're doing it in Texas.
It's in the lab. Nothing ever gets out of labs. Come
yeah.
on.
Oh, we used like zoo grade caging. Great. They also used electrical wires at Jurassic Park. You saw what happened there. Lazarus Rex. Hey Matt, late to the show, haven't been able to listen, just wanted to touch base and say, still love seeing you pop up in my feed. It's like coming home. Keep them coming. Well, thank you for that.
We love you. You're very special.
Much appreciated. But I think that's all our chats for tonight. Give a quick refresh and we'll call it a stream. Yeah, we're all set. Anything else you want to say before we're out of here?
I can give you one more story here. No, I can't. Never mind. I was just gonna say my Maud was telling me the other day. She's like, I hate myself. I look so fat. Can you please give me a compliment? And I was going, well, you got perfect eyesight.
Fair enough. Although the diabetes is going to get that pretty soon, I would assume.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
If not already.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in tonight. Appreciate everybody being here. Thanks to the live chatters and super chatters for making the live show a success. If you're listening on demand later, thank you kindly as well for supporting the show. Thanks to Frank for joining tonight. QuiteFrankly.tv for all things Quite Frankly. Thanks to Dell for sitting in. Thanks to our callers and our emails. Thanks to producer Tim for his assistance as well. If you'd like to find more to listen to or anything else show related, MattChristiansenMedia.com. I'm back on Sunday. Hope to see you.